Welcome to Day by Day True Crime Stories, the podcast where we take a look at a different crime or justice milestone from this day in history. I'm your host, Kona Gallagher, and today is January 14th. On this day in 2018, a brave young girl made a life-changing decision that not only freed her, but also exposed a case of unimaginable abuse that shocked the entire nation. This is the story of the Turpin family, the horrors they endured behind closed doors, and how Jordan Turpin's extraordinary courage changed everything. Let's get into it. To outsiders, David and Louise Turpin seemed like the picture of a large, devoted family. Living in Paris, California with their 13 children, they presented themselves as a devout, close-knit household. Family photos on social media depicted smiling parents with their children dressed in identical outfits, all in tidy rows. But beyond these carefully staged images was a reality steeped in horror. Inside, the Turpin children endured years of relentless abuse and neglect. They were starved, chained to beds, and deprived of basic hygiene. Their living conditions were horrifying. There were filthy rooms that had a stench of human waste, and they were barely given enough food to survive. Malnutrition was so severe among the children that they looked much younger than their actual ages. Plus, despite being homeschooled, they were deprived of even the most rudimentary education. Most couldn't read, write, or do basic arithmetic. It was a life of isolation and suffering, and they were all hidden in plain sight. But everything changed on January 14th, 2018. On that day, 17-year-old Jordan Turpin made a decision that would alter the course of not only her life, but the lives of her siblings forever. For 2 years, Jordan had secretly planned her escape, fueled by glimpses of the outside world that she had gotten through a confiscated cell phone. Slowly, she pieced together enough understanding of life beyond captivity to build up her courage to act. Before the sun even rose on that January morning, Jordan slipped out of a window carrying the deactivated cell phone that she was able to use to call 911. She called as she walked down the dark, deserted street, and her voice trembled as she told the police dispatcher, quote, "I just ran away from home because I live in a family of 15 and we have abusive parents," end quote. She described how some of her siblings were chained up, and she painted a picture of the squalid environment that they lived in. Now, this call set off a cascade of events. That dispatcher took her seriously, and officers quickly arrived at the Turpin home. And when they got there, they were met with a scene that was so shocking that it stunned even the seasoned law enforcement officers. They found the Turpin children frail and filthy and shackled to furniture. The smell of human waste permeated the air, and the children's hollow, sunken faces showed the extent of the years of abuse that they had been suffering. Jordan's bravery on that January morning brought to light a nightmare that no one could have imagined. Later that day, David and Louise Turpin were arrested. As investigators delved deeper, the full scale of the abuse began to come to light. The Turpins maintained strict control over their children, using starvation, isolation, and brutal punishment, all as forms of domination. The children were allowed 1 shower per year, and infractions as small as washing their hands above their wrists were met with severe beatings. Neighbors recounted seeing the children outside only occasionally, describing them as pale, thin, and withdrawn. The Turpins had carefully constructed a facade of normalcy, but inside of their home, they ruled with calculated cruelty. People who had known Louise Turpin in her youth were shocked. She had been known as a lively and outgoing person, but this Louise Turpin was somebody completely different. Over the years, she had transformed into this cold figure who orchestrated much of the abuse right alongside her husband. Jordan's escape exposed years of suffering that might otherwise have gone unnoticed. One officer on the scene later said, quote, "I will never forget what I saw in that house. Those children, the conditions, they're things you can't unsee." End quote. The Turpins faced a long list of charges, including child abuse, false imprisonment, and torture. By February 2019, both David and Louise pleaded guilty to 14 felony counts. The courtroom hearings were a testament to their extreme cruelty. But in an empowering moment, one of the Turpin children stood up in court and gave a statement saying in part, quote, "My parents took my whole life from me, but now I'm taking my life back," end quote. Judge Bernard Schwartz didn't hold back in his condemnation, declaring, quote, "You have severed any right to ever see your children again. What you did was unforgivable," end quote. The couple was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. For the Turpin siblings, the sentencing brought some closure, but the road to healing, of course, would be long and complex. After their rescue, the Turpin children began the painstaking process of recovery. Doctors treated their severe malnutrition while social workers worked to integrate them into a world they never truly known. The siblings received an outpouring of public support, with donations and resources raised to help them rebuild their lives. However, adjusting to their new reality was far from easy. Reports later revealed systemic failures in providing the Turpin siblings with adequate care, with some of the adult siblings struggling to access the funds that were meant for their welfare. The challenges that they face just show that escaping abuse is only the first step in a much longer journey. Jordan Turpin has since spoken out about her experiences. And I mean, if you've ever seen her interviews, you know that she shows an incredible amount of resilience. In her interviews, she emphasized her determination and her hope for a brighter future for herself and for her siblings. She told reporters, quote, "I fought to become the person I am today, and I'm proud of how far we've all come," end quote. David and Louise Turpin remain in prison, serving life sentences for their many crimes. The Turpin siblings continue to rebuild their lives, surrounded by supporters and advocates who strive to ensure that they receive the care and opportunities that they deserve. Jordan Turpin's escape not only saved her own life, but gave her siblings a chance at freedom. Her courage is a reminder that even in the darkest moments, hope can prevail. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Day by Day True Crime Stories. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider rating, subscribing, and reviewing us on your favorite podcast platform. And be sure to join me tomorrow as we delve into another moment in true crime history. Stay safe out there, take care of yourself, and always make sure to take care of others. Day by Day True Crime Stories is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!